Here is a glass of milk. Milk is rich in certain nutrients. What happens to the glass of milk after 3 days? Click on the milk to see. The milk has curdled after 3 days. Why has the milk curdled? Discuss this phenomenon with your friends. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify factors that affect the growth of microorganisms, design an experiment to study how nutrient affects the growth of microorganisms, design an experiment to study how humidity affects the growth of microorganisms, design an experiment to study how light affects the growth of microorganisms, explain how each factor affects the growth of microorganisms. We know that microorganisms are present everywhere. They may be dormant until conditions are suitable for them to grow and reproduce. We have seen that the glass of milk curdles after 3 days. This is because milk is rich in nutrients like lactose and casein. Some bacteria use these nutrients to grow and multiply. As they grow, they may damage the constituents of milk, such as protein. This is why the growth of these microorganisms spoils the milk. There are 5 major factors that affect the growth of microorganisms. Nutrient is one factor. What are the other factors? Discuss this with your friends. Click on the chart to see. Humidity, light, temperature and pH are other factors that affect the growth of microorganisms. Earlier, we have seen how nutrients affect the growth of microorganisms. Now, let's see how humidity and light can also affect the growth of microorganisms. Click on humidity to continue. Here is a slice of bread that is left on a table for a week. What happens to it after a week? Click on the bread to see. After a week, the slice of bread becomes moldy. This is because it has been exposed to the humidity in the air. The humid air causes moisture to be condensed on the surface of the bread. This dampens the bread. The damp bread makes it easier for the mold to absorb nutrients from it. Moisture also helps in the metabolism of these microorganisms. As a result, the molds grow and multiply faster. Let's see how light affects the growth of microorganisms. We shall dry some wet shirts under 2 conditions: in a closed room and under the hot sun. What happens to the shirts after 3 days? Drag shirt A into the closed room. Drag shirt B under the hot sun. Then, observe the shirts. Shirt A is slightly damp and moldy. Shirt B is dry and clean. Why have molds grown on shirt A? Why are there no molds on shirt B? Discuss this with your friends. Click on the shirts to find out. Molds grow well in damp and dark conditions. As shirt A dries, moisture from the shirt vaporizes into the air. Vapor increases the humidity in the closed room. High humidity causes moisture to condense on the surface of the shirts. Therefore, shirt A is still slightly damp and moldy. Shirt B dries in the heat of the sun. The sun's ultraviolet rays also inhibit the growth of molds and most microorganisms. This is why there are no molds on shirt B. Let's design an experiment. We will study how nutrient, humidity and light affect the growth of microorganisms. We are given these materials and apparatus for the experiment. 3 petri dishes with nutrient agar, 1 petri dish with plain agar, some pond water, a syringe, a cupboard and some cellophane tape. What is the hypothesis for this experiment? What are the manipulated, responding, and fixed variables? Record your hypothesis and variables. Click Check Answer when you have finished. Suitable nutrients with dark and humid conditions encourage the growth of microorganisms. The manipulated variables are humidity, nutrients, and light. The responding variable is microorganism growth. The fixed variables are temperature and pH. Now, click Precaution before starting the experiment. Wash your hands with soap before and after the experiment. Protect any wounds on your hands before the experiment. Wear gloves when carrying out the experiment. Scrub the surface of the table with disinfectant before and after the experiment. Rinse all the apparatus used with disinfectant after the experiment. Dispose of the materials used in the experiment carefully. Seek advice from your teacher. Do not eat or drink in the laboratory. Click Play to see how the experiment is carried out. You are given 4 sterile petri dishes labeled A, B, C, and D. Petri dishes A, B, and C contain nutrient agar. Nutrient agar is agar with minerals. Petri dish A acts as a control. As a control, the agar in Petri dish A will be given all the factors of growth being studied, that is, humidity, nutrient and dark conditions. Petri dish B contains dry nutrient agar. The water in the agar has been removed by heating in the oven to maintain a dry condition. Petri dish D contains plain agar. Plain agar is agar without minerals. All Petri dishes are covered so that the agar is not contaminated. Petri dishes A, B and D will be provided with dark conditions. Petri dish C will be provided with bright conditions. Follow this procedure. Add a few drops of pond water into Petri dishes A, B, C and D. Pond water is a source of microorganisms used in this experiment. Seal each dish with a cellophane tape. Swirl each dish slowly to smear the pond water evenly on the surface of the agar. Turn over each of the Petri dish. This is to prevent condensed water on the cover from dropping onto the surface of the agar. Water will affect the growth of bacteria and the experiment will not be accurate. Leave Petri dish C on the table with the room lights on. Put Petri dishes A, B and D into a cupboard. This is to ensure a dark condition. Observe the agar in all Petri dishes after 3 days. Record your observations in a table. Make your conclusion based on the observations. Click Check Answer when you have finished. There are many white spots on the agar in Petri dish A. This indicates that the presence of humidity, darkness and nutrients encourage microorganism growth. There are no white spots on the agar in Petri dish B. This indicates that dry condition does not encourage the growth of microorganisms. There are a few white spots on the agar in Petri dish C. This indicates that bright light condition does not encourage the growth of microorganisms. There are a few white spots on the agar in Petri dish D. This indicates that the absence of nutrient does not encourage the growth of microorganisms. Therefore, dark and humid conditions with suitable nutrients encourage the growth of microorganisms. Hence, the hypothesis is accepted. Into groups of 5. Nutrient, humidity and light are some of the factors that affect the growth of microorganisms. Microorganisms grow well when nutrients are available. Their growth is inhibited when nutrients are not easily available. Humidity also encourages the growth of microorganisms. Dry conditions do not encourage their growth. Most microorganisms grow actively in dark conditions. Their growth is mainly inhibited when there is sunlight. To design an experiment to study how humidity, nutrient and light affect the growth of microorganisms, a hypothesis is first made. The manipulated, responding and fixed variables are then determined. The experiment concludes that microorganisms grow well in dark and humid conditions. They also grow well when suitable nutrients are available. Salt and sugar are used as food preservatives. Salt is mainly used to preserve meat. Sugar is mainly used to preserve fruits. Why do we need food preservatives? How do salt and sugar help preserve food? What are other food preservatives? Find out in groups of 4. Present your answers to the class.